Good morning. Starting off with the disclaimer, I am not a financial advisor. Nothing in this video is financial advice or a recommendation to buy or sell any financial product. All content is for informational purposes only based on personal opinions and experiences. Trading futures, options, and other financial instruments involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for every investor. You can lose more than your initial investment, so always do your own research and consult with a licensed financial professional. Okay. Moving on to the news. So we've got GDP growth rate at 8:30 today. That's in about an hour, a bit less than an hour, 50 minutes now. So this 8:30 news is the good chunk of the day. Maybe I missed it. I thought we would have EIA. Oh yeah, okay. So EIA is different times, slightly different times it looks like as well, unless I was just not paying attention before, but it's 12 p.m. instead of 10:30, so that's good for me because I really only trade the 9 to 11 in CL. And then we've got some Fed speakers later today. In advance, I'll apologize if there's some loud noises coming from in the background. It's garbage day. It's garbage day today, and I've got the window open, so the trucks will be driving by at some point probably. So, pre-market sheet. We're still neutral on the weekly, so no one-time framing on the weekly. We have started one-time framing higher on the daily, like I mentioned yesterday. So you've got low, higher low, and they all extended the highs, and that gives you one-time framing higher. Once you get three of those bars, or in other words, like 1, 2, you get 1, 2. That's when one-time framing starts. When it's just one time framing is initiated, but it's not in play yet. But it could be, right? Like, yeah. So you are one time framing higher on the daily, nothing on the weekly. And you see, we already did break yesterday's high in the overnight. This was yesterday's high. This is overnight high. So even VPOC right now is above yesterday's high from the overnight. So yeah, so for the pre-market sheet, we're opening in a balanced condition because we're in yesterday's range. I said we're pretty much sideways, but we are aggressively moving higher right now at least. We had an up gap yesterday that is still open, so we had the gap up yesterday, which was bigger than anticipated for my prep video. It was about 20 ticks, which is still open. We still got the same swing high. Sorry about that. We still got the same swing high. It's still weak. Yesterday's high and low are both good. Neither are weak. One time framing I went through. All right, sorry about that. I just paused for a minute to let the trucks pass. But I can't remember exactly where I left off. But we are still in the broader balance, so you're just compressing. Like I said yesterday, I made that point in the prep video yesterday. As for key levels, you've got above us, we've got overnight high, like I said, which broke yesterday's high. You still have yesterday's high. And overnight VPOC, I already mentioned all three of those. And then you've got a bunch of naked stuff up here and the prior swings high up here in the 63.45, I believe. Yeah, right there. And then below us, we're sort of in it, but this blue magnet zone, which I'll talk about today, settle, yesterday's low, and prior week settle, which is still actually naked, you can see. Prior week settle, Tuesday, Wednesday. So we basically gapped right through it, and so it's still naked for the week. So, yeah, that's that. That's key levels. let's get into the TPO. Nice. I think if you draw on it before you move it off that monitor, it will work. I think that's the trick. Yeah, so like I said already, you had the gap higher yesterday, which was left open. We briefly checked lower. We touched the half gap. We did touch the half gap, but then that's all we could do, and we reverted higher. We did all this, and then we came all the way back down and closed basically where we opened. Um, from there, you saw the overnight continued higher and broke yesterday's high, and then also came back down to yesterday's profile. So yeah, like really, even if we have directional days, I'm really just in balance. Like this is really just balanced. You can see this composite. This is all balanced, and then when I zoom out, you've got it's balanced within balance, right? Within all of this, and so yeah, I'm not really thinking about any major rejection until something major is broken, right? So really, the main things I'm looking at is structurally, you got this low. Why is that so skinny? You've got this low here, and you've got this high here. So until either one of those are broken, like on the low side, we know that once you get into the low side, this area, this 5980 area, is a decision point based off of my planning at least. It's a decision point for do we want to stay higher and go for swing high, or do we want to go lower and go for swing low? The broader swing low. And so if we come up to that, that will be a decision point which will, hopefully for me at least, give some clarity on what our next intention is on a bit of a higher time frame. And then really on the high side, it's just this swing high. Like once this breaks, you've got the next swing high basically up here, this 6390 swing high. But you got to get this one first. So yeah, like that's really the main things I'm waiting for on a more structural basis, like for a more structured move. And until you do that, like we're really just balancing, and yeah, we can still trade directional on the day time frame rotations, but I know in a broader time frame we're just in balance. So I wanted to make that point clear today. As for scenarios, with that being said, pretty much anything can happen today, right? Like we've got a good settle. Settle is near the value metrics, the VPOC and the POC here. And so we've got the gap below us. We've got gap close here. We've got settle there. We do have yesterday's low as well, which could be a gauge for the gap close. Or that's the gap start, I guess. And then we've got yesterday's high. And overnight high, but I won't put that down. Because overnight high broke yesterday's high, it is a bit more significant because this was already broken after it was put in, but yesterday's high is still important. And obviously you've got this blue magnet zone right in the middle here. So I put this magnet zone on the stock zones yesterday, and basically it's pretty self-explanatory. Like a magnet zone is like a magnet to the market, right? That's why we call it a magnet zone. So when you see a lot of trade happening, I guess, through certain areas, right? And you're sort of holding, it was better, it looked better. Which chart did it look better on, the 30-minute? Can't exactly remember which chart I was looking at to make it, but you can see the point anyway. Like we've had a lot of trade through here, and we've been constantly pulled back. Like you see, we open down here on these days, and we get pulled back towards the center, and we get pulled back towards the center, and we get pulled back towards the center. And so basically, that's all it means, right? Like the market needs to build up energy to actually push away, because there's so much acceptance here that the market constantly, if we're close by, the market constantly wants to come back and check it, right? And so it's almost like it's actually being pulled towards the zone. But really, people just like these prices. That's all it really is. And so we just keep coming back. And so, Yeah, that's right on top of the MCV puck as well. The MCV puck is the pink right below it. But yeah, this is an important zone I'll be watching for now to like push away from, right? And so once we get a good bit away, like on the low side, it's pretty much the low, and then on the high side, it's pretty much here. Like if you can get above, then you look good for some continuation, and maybe not getting as pulled into here. Um, if you think again like a magnet, like the further away you are from the magnet, the slower or weaker the pull is, right? Like when you put magnets closer and closer together, eventually they just snap together, right? But as you pull them apart, it gets that pull gets weaker and weaker, right? So yeah, so that's an important zone as well. I kind of got off topic with I was going to draw some brief scenarios, but basically a clear scenario for me today is if settle still holds and you reject prices below yesterday's low, I would consider that a rejection of yesterday's low if we hold settle. Like we don't want to close the gap and we don't want to check prices down here. Then we could revert higher and move up towards yesterday's high. Obviously, if we're more aggressively bullish like we have been the past, basically just yesterday, then you could see more of the straight up. We've got overnight VPUC just above yesterday's high, like right in there, right? So we could get an early break of yesterday's high or push up to break yesterday's high early. That's aggressive. And then pull back into like overnight VPUC. You've got yesterday's high. You've got overnight high. You've got a lot of stuff you could pull back to for continuation up here. So that would be a more aggressive bullish scenario. And then for a bearish scenario, like I said with settle, like you want to see it get below settle. Like this move to settle is potentially tradable, but like this to test settle. But you sort of need the open. Like that's a trade. It's a tight trade. It's scalp because you're obviously you don't have a bearish bias. So it's very tight and you're usually leaning on just like, I guess lower time frame DGPs, right? Like the opening swing, the open, that kind of thing. So you kind of have to let it develop. But yeah, not that it's impossible, but it'd be a scalp and it'd be very tight. But once you get to settle, if you can break below it, then yeah, if you can break below it and hold below it, and you're holding below settle and the mag zone as well, then it looks good for continuation for yesterday's low in the gap pretty much. Once you get into the gap high, once you close the gap, basically, it's pretty much just zone to zone for me. You do have the naked stuff from Monday, which could be tested, but pretty much it's just zone to zone down here. I'll just be looking at Monday's metrics pretty much, test of value, the stock zones, the naked VPOCs, the naked settles, that kind of thing. And then on the high side, like I said, like this is the first clue for me that we could be going for the swing high up here, right? So if we get a push and we do break this, then yeah, you could start really thinking, okay, the trade for this looks pretty good now, right? But first you have to test this one, right? So yeah, so we're pretty good for time. We're only at 13 minutes here. I try to keep it around 15 minutes. So I'm just going to get to the drawing now. Or I'll quickly go over overnight, like I said. I already mentioned it, but yeah, overnight VPUC is right above yesterday's high. And so if you do anything, if you have any reaction at overnight / yesterday's high, it's going to be important. Like that, if it holds, or if you break above and then you pull back and hold yesterday's high overnight VPUC area, both of those look good. You just have to get there kind of thing. But yeah, so for drawing and with the mag zone, the thing I want to be cautious for is to just not really, if we're clearly just chopping in the mag zone and we're just being pulled into it, then just sit out. Like for me, because I take pretty much only continuation trades, it's just not the environment that's suited for that type of trade, right? Like you're choppy, it's squishy, it's balanced. Like you can do it, but you have to be very picky. Sort of like the first trade I had yesterday that I went through in my end of day video last night. Like the first trade was a good representation of what you should do in balance. The second one was not, pretty much. So yeah, let's get into our drawings. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Okay, so we'll just put mostly the overnight profile. We've got is this yesterday's low? Yeah, so that's yesterday's low. So we don't have to go much past there. And then that's prior high, so that would be the gap close, if I'm correct. Yeah, that's gap close. And then up to here we've got, yeah, that's good. Up to overnight high pretty much, and these naked VPOCs up here. Dun 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 dun. So we've got prior high, or let me move it. I don't like to cover the volume profile with these boxes. Prior high, yesterday's low, overnight low settle, mag zone, overnight VPOC, yesterday's high, overnight high, naked settle. So I think that should be it. That's everything. I don't think I missed anything. So this is gap close. This is yesterday's low. This is overnight low. And what the fuck? And settle. Whatever. Sorry about that. I know I don't usually swear on these, or at least I try not to. This is yesterday's high. This is overnight VPOC. Naked VPOC. And overnight high. Perfect. So you got kind of a lot. But yeah, we kind of went through the general scenarios already. And so like I said, I'll redraw the aggressive bullish scenario, which would be the hold of settle pretty much like this that continues higher. If this continues higher and is able to push all the way back up to yesterday's high area, potentially if we get to yesterday's high, we could pull back from here, but for me at least, there's no DGP at right now that I could lean on a pullback up over here. So I would have to wait for the break of yesterday's high / overnight VPOC and look in here on the pullback for the continuation, basically just for overnight high. Overnight high is above that prior high that I showed you that you had to break before the swing high. This naked VPOC is where that prior high is. So if you break that, like, you're going for that and overnight high pretty much. That'd be basically what you would be looking for, or what I would be looking for. And then you've got some more naked stuff above, and then the swing high, obviously. And so overnight high definitely going to be key resistance. Not the naked VPOC. Overnight high, yesterday's high area. Or overnight VPOC, yesterday's high area, definitely could hold as well and be pulled in back to the magnet zone. And then, yeah, that would be the two main areas I'd be looking for potential for the opposing side to show up, at least today. And then on the bearish scenario, like I said, you have to really get through the mag zone and get through settle to give yourself a little space. And then if you pull back and hold either settle or the mag zone, you could go for the short trade for yesterday's low and potentially even for the gap close. But like I said, if you're not below settle, the shorts are only scalps and they're only tight. right? Because then you're probably trading in this mag zone or up here through this mag zone. If you hold yesterday's high and you take this short here for the test of settle, you have to go through the mag zone, right? So they're only tight, they're very tight, they're low size, they're scalps, low risk. And yeah, so as for key support areas, gap close definitely. And then, yeah, prior week settle and yesterday's low, really. Or, sorry, settle and yesterday's low. Right, like that. And we will obviously just draw it for the sake of it. We have to watch out for balance. We've got a pretty nice distribution here. So I did have that whole sermon at the start saying we are in balance, right? But at the same time, we have now been in balance for a while. And so the market just moves from balance to imbalance, right? And so we are eventually going to break out. And as each day goes forward, as we're balanced, like we're just getting closer and closer to the breakout. We still don't know when it's going to be, but we just know we're getting closer to it, right? So, because it has to happen eventually. So, I'll end it there. I think that's a pretty solid plan for the day. Basically, main objectives would be yesterday's high for a break or a recheck of yesterday's high to potentially continue higher for the swing high and all the naked stuff above us. Clean all that up. And then objective below would be, well, check settle, check yesterday's low. And then if we want to continue, then you've got the gap low and you've got naked stuff from Monday. So that's the main objectives. I'll end it there. I hear the garbage truck coming by again. So I'll end it there, and I will be back end of day with the trade review.